My name, if you didn't recognize, my name is Matt Holt. I have a great honor of being the chairman of the North Jersey Transportation Planning Authority, a freeholder in what I refer to frequently as, and they hear it all the time, God's country, which is essentially go to Newark and run as far as you can run till you hit Pennsylvania, and there you are. Oftentimes we say we have more cows than people out there, but things are changing out there as well. I've had the great luxury of serving there. I'm in my third term there. As it was mentioned, in 2008 I joined the NJTPA not having a clue what NJTPA stood for or what we even did. 6 years later, I get to stand in front of all of you and really relate kind of what we do, but I think have a message I hope that resonates with all of you. So what do we do at NJTPA? We deal with long-range planning. We deal with federally funded projects. We do it for a 13-county region. Picture New Jersey, go down to the Jersey Shore, Ocean County, run all the way up to Bergen County, shoot over to Sussex, come down to my God's country in Hunterdon, scoot around Somerset, Middlesex, Monmouth, and come back down again. That's the region. 6.5 million people, 3.2 million jobs, and the board is made up of 13 elected officials, either county execs or freeholders like myself, 2 cities, Newark and Jersey City, and then we have our transportation partners, Port Authority of New York, New Jersey, sitting right here, NJDOT, New Jersey Transit, which I rode this morning, great $4 ride out of Secaucus Junction over there, great parking over there as well, and then we have a governor's rep and we have a citizens member as well, which sits vacant at the moment. So out of 20 board members, we've got 19 at this moment in time. And we meet as a board every other month. We meet as committees the alternating months, and I think I live there some days in the Newark office. Before I got involved in that, what is a regional board, I worked with engineering community in a lot of different ways. As was mentioned, I have a personal job on top of the other things, okay? I manage the sales for a great company out of Seattle. We basically build fabric structures. We build temporary structures, we deal with codes, we deal with engineering constantly in terms of building temporary space for people all over the country. As was also mentioned, I spent a bunch of years on a local level. So I served as a councilman, I served as mayor in a small town of Clinton. Vision of Clinton. Clinton's about the size of this room, okay? We got basically 8 center line miles of road. It's about 1.3 square miles. We got 2,500 people in the town. At one point, I think I knew all of them. The way you win elections in Clinton is you actually walk. And you walk those 8 miles many times. I've worn many shoes out, pairs of shoes out doing that. And we have a roads and bridge committee, although, ladies and gentlemen, we don't actually have any bridges. Well, we do. We have 3. 2 of them are run by the county, 2 of them are maintained by the county, 1 by DOT. So we don't have any bridges of our own, but I served on the Roads and Bridges Committee, okay? And of course, worked with our engineering community in that way as well. Move up to my county. Now, my county's got essentially hundreds of miles of road. We've got 238 bridges. And then since '08, I move into this sort of regional location. And the regional location, that infrastructure now takes me to a position where we've got 23,000 miles of roads. We have about 4,800 bridges. We've got about almost 400 miles of rail. We've got about 150 stations. Pardon me while I put my glasses on because I have jotted some notes that I can't read at this particular moment, but we've got about 150 stations. And all of these various levels, so from a local level, a county level, and now the regional level, they vary in scope, they vary in size, but in every one of them, the work of what you all do, the engineering community, is so important because what you're doing is you take us from the plan to the project. We got to move at some point in time from that which we sort of plan to do, and that's what NJTPA does. We plan to do things, okay? At some point in time, we actually have to implement it, and you all make that happen. Now, with respect to business, I've spent 35 years in the business career, 20 of them in the public sector. Please note that those are concurrent sentences, okay? So that's all going on at the same time, all right? Of the 35 years that I have worked in the private sector, about 25 of those or so I've been self-employed. Every single one of those careers that I've had, there's been a component that ties to transportation. But it wasn't until I got into the regional level that I really started to understand how vast, how big, and how complex, and most importantly, how economically vital this transportation network really, really is. Let me give you a quick example, okay? I want to talk about the region that I serve. Let's look at the goods movement system, which, as many of you know, includes really one of the largest ports on the East Coast. You guys are in the engineering community. I'm going to throw some numbers at you, okay? 473 million tons of domestic freight is shipped or received in our region. I mean, it's a big number. I mentioned that 3.2 million jobs come out of this 13-county region in northern Jersey. Almost a third, 900,000 of them, are somehow tied to a business that's related or dependent upon freight. It's a third of those jobs. Now, some of you I've met before. Some of you have maybe been somewhere I've been. I am, and I will continue to be, a very loud, vocal, hopefully energetic at 8 o'clock or 8:30 in the morning advocate for transportation funding. I've worked very hard to be very specific in time and time again calling on the federal government and saying, look, you've got to come up with a bipartisan solution for long-term, not 2 years, not 6 months, long-term, stable, bipartisan funding for our nation's transportation infrastructure. And I will say to you bluntly, last summer, when MAP 21 first came out, and I know you know this because you've heard me speak a few times, okay, I have not been shy about saying there are shortcomings in MAP 21. It's passed a year ago. It ends a year or so from now. There are shortcomings. We've got to, this is a message we've got to drive home. So funding the work that needs to be done is one of the biggest challenges that we have. And it's coming at us right now at a time when our infrastructure is aging. I mean, you all know this. Our infrastructure we've not kept up with it. It's aging faster than we're doing the maintenance work on it. The resources right now are probably more limited than we've ever had, but I'm not going to stop. I am going to continue to bang this drum. We've got to increase, we've got to make the infrastructure investment, the funding that we need, we've got to make that greater in our system, and the freight numbers show that. Our transportation network, it's like the arterial system in your body. It is the circulatory system of the economy. It is such a critical component to the quality of our life, which is tied directly to our economy. Now, I said you guys look like friends, so I'm going to say something and then I will deny that I've ever said it, okay? Funding is not the only answer. By the way, I'm going to jump back to banging on the drum at funding at the end of this thing, but it's not the only answer, okay? Because what we've really got to do is we've got to take a hard look, not just about how much we invest. We got to ask ourselves, how are we investing this? We have to ask ourselves, what can we really do to improve transportation? Especially when we look at this area, which is so densely populated, which is so heavily traveled as northern New Jersey and New York City are. And the answer lies with us, all of us, engineers, planners, private investors, certainly public officials, okay? We have to all work harder to make transportation really, really matter. Really, it matters so much to the general public. And it's something that, in my opinion, is just far too important for us to take for granted. Had a chance on numerous occasions to work with former DOT Commissioner Jack Latier, guy I respect tremendously. Jack Latier, I'll never forget one of the first times I ever saw him speak, and he leaned over the podium and he looked at all of us and he said, I'll do the same, but this is where we may have the cabin may decompress real quickly here, okay? But he leaned over the podium, he looked at us and he said, we've got to make transportation a social issue. We've got to tie it directly to every single one of us. I can't agree more with that. We have to emphasize personal transit. We have to emphasize and we have to personalize transportation. And we have to do it so that every single one of us and every person we know that is a member of the traveling public understands the benefit of investing in transportation, investing in our infrastructure, but more importantly, what are the costs if we fail to do so? So, back to numbers. Let's take a look at a couple of quick key numbers. And by the way, I was in Texas last week. It was 105 degrees, 3 days I was there. You all can thank me for bringing all the Texas heat up here. I did not bring the humidity, but I brought the heat. But speaking of Texas, the Texas Transportation Institute's annual report, some of you may know about it. They speak about congestion in the US. So let's look at a couple of numbers. And I think the numbers are important, and I'll explain why in a second. So what is the total time lost in congestion each year in our nation? And the answer to that, and where'd she go? They are answering this question. Put it down that they're getting the points for answering this question, okay? The answer is 5.5 billion hours. Big number. What's the total cost of that congestion? Another answer, 121 billion dollars in wasted gas, wasted time, lost productivity, including enough fuel to fill the New Orleans Superdome 4 times. I'm going to be in New Orleans in a couple of weeks. It's a visual that, honestly, I'm not going to forget. That's enough fuel that's lost there. And if you're environmentally concerned, emissions, what is it? It's an additional 56 billion pounds of CO2 into our nation's air. As I said before, these are big numbers. They're impressive. But they don't help us really humanize the situation, do they? They're too large for most people to comprehend. You just can't wrap your head around that type of number. You don't know how that applies to you because it's the per person numbers that really, really make an impression on the individual traveler. So let's talk about the New York metro region where congestion costs the average commuter $1,281 a year. You want a $100 a month raise? We got to figure out how to solve this. Per family, per commuter. Suppose that's 2 people. $1,281 a year. That's a figure that when I put that out there, you begin to wrap your head around it. It's money that you waste in gas when you're stuck in gridlock with your engine idling, or certainly this week it applies, your air conditioning blasting away, okay? It's the extra money that you pay because the cost of things are higher based upon what it actually costs to deliver and based upon the congestion that occurs there, okay? But money is only one part of this. What else do we lose? We lose something more precious than money, and that is we lose our time. We lose, on average, 59 hours a year. If you're lucky enough to work 40 hours a week, probably most of you don't, but let's say you do, that's almost 1.5 work weeks a year that you lose sitting in traffic. Do the numbers begin to resonate? Of course they do. What does this mean to people on a real level? This doesn't just mean missed meetings. It doesn't mean lost productivity. It means that I lose time with my family. I lose time with my hobbies. I lose time in what I think are some of the real quality of life things, not that our jobs aren't. How does it impact the average human being? Who's trying to get home to catch a softball game? Who's trying to get home to celebrate a birthday? Who's trying to get someplace else? We lose that. So it isn't just about money, it's about time. Those 2 things together create what? A quality of life that we want within a region. Basically, it also means more stress as we struggle every day making it to work or trying to get home on time. We've got to keep these very human aspects on people's lives in mind, whether we're advocating for transportation funding, whether we're working to explain the benefits of a particular transportation project, because this is how we are going to make transportation really, really matter to people. It's how we make it real, but it's also how we're going to get the public, you and everyone else, to actually help us buy into the solutions. There's another number I want to share with you. This is one you can get your head around. The number is 36. That is $36 return for every single dollar that's invested. That's the economic power of transportation projects. That is according to Rutgers University analysis. These numbers are about time, they're about money lost in congestion, they're about those problems, and the last fact, a 36-to-1 return on investment is about the opportunity. How do we seize that opportunity? How do we begin to solve the problem? Let's go into a topic I love, okay? That topic is technology. Simply put, we can. We absolutely can create a world-class transportation system right here in our region if we focus on innovative technology. I can't tell you how many times as I speak all over the region, how many times I pointed out that smart technology makes our network more efficient, and it's probably, not even probably, it is definitively one of the best bangs for the dollar that we can possibly get when it comes to investing limited resources. And you want to talk about personalizing transportation? So many travelers can now check into their computers before leaving home to plan routes, or they can make adjustments on the fly thanks to the smartphones and GPS systems that they now have got, okay? That is, of course, unless you're me this morning, who couldn't do much of anything. Right now, every one of us, for the most part, has the power to save time, money, aggravation, and it's right in your pockets. All we have to do is figure out how to help them use it. Then add some other technologies. These are things that you folks will be involved with. Smart traffic signaling, meter ramping. All of those types of things can be worked into projects just as well. Every one of these investments is going to allow us to get just a little bit more efficiency out of our transportation network. And when you begin to combine all those things together, the investments begin to make a huge systematic shift in how we're going to travel. You know, one thing we've got to be very clear about, in this New York and New Jersey metropolitan area, we are not necessarily going to completely be able to build our way out of this. We've got to figure out how to eke out more capacity out of what we have. Technology is what's going to do that for us. So at NJTPA, we lead the way on a lot of things, and this is one of the things we're leading the way on. We're serving as the project lead for a statewide intelligent transportation systems architecture and strategic plan. This effort basically is going to create a blueprint for the use of technology that's going to give us a truly modern, truly world-class transportation system. New York City and Philadelphia are both involved in this project, and ultimately we're going to end up with a truly connected corridor right here in the New York, New Jersey metropolitan area. The technology's out there. We just need to embrace it. And wherever we possibly can, we've got to look at innovative ways to use the applications, to use the data. We've got to look at other smart ways to improve transportation system efficiency. And the same thing applies to new materials that are also proving to be safe and cost efficient. Now, there are other changes that the engineering and the planning community need to take into account when they start to look at transportation solutions. One of those is demographic shifts that are beginning to alter our region and our nation. As I mentioned, NJTPA board meets every other month. And at our last board meeting, we heard from a gentleman by the name of Dean James Hughes. He is from the Blaustein School of Planning and Public Policy at Rutgers University. He is an authority. I so much enjoyed hearing him. But he confirmed what many of us have been hearing about these demographic changes. We're seeing more aging baby boomers become empty nesters. I am one of them. We are seeing those same people more often looking towards walkable communities, looking to a less auto-dependent lifestyle. And in addition to that, when we add that to the baby boomer, or what we call the echo generation, or we call them the millennial generation, they're all looking for that different type of lifestyle. What does it mean for transportation planning? What's it mean for engineering? It means we have to start to think in terms of new and innovative approaches to moving people that are not necessarily vehicle dependent. Certainly not automobile dependent. Transit-oriented development, shuttle services, BRT, bus rapid transit, biking, walking, all of these things are going to start to play a greater role in how we develop and how we get around in years to come. And it means that the old model of interstate highway access to the big suburban office parks is not going to drive development in New Jersey any longer. It's not going to happen. NJTPA is working with Rutgers, New Jersey Transit, other member counties and cities, and a bunch of others on the Together North Jersey initiative. This one took several years to put together. I'm really proud of it because it's an unprecedented regional planning effort that's going to lead to a comprehensive regional plan that addresses transportation, economic development, environmental resources, and a bunch of other stuff in a really, really new integrated way. And I think that this model of Together North Jersey is really what I call a game changer. I'm going to take you back out west to Hunterdon County. We're working for the first time with our neighbors in Somerset County to revitalize a stretch of highway called US Route 202. In this particular case, it's a 14-mile stretch, Somerville at one end, Flemington at another end, and a bunch of empty land in between. We're going to finally coordinate that land so we can support something that we don't have in that region, and that is actually potential transit service. It's a region that was built up around the idea of 50 cents a gallon gasoline and jump in your car and go where you want to go, and that model doesn't work anymore. So we have a thing called Together 202. It's an initiative that is 2 counties, 7 towns in a conversation, and by the way, that conversation should have taken place 20 years ago, but it didn't. But through Together North Jersey and funding from New Jersey Transit, whom we thank very much, we're finally being able to make that happen. And if we can get municipal officials from these towns, and we can get them at a table, we get them actually having a conversation together, we can get anybody together. But we need you. We need you to embrace what is a new and very different future. as we look at how are we going to meet the needs of what these future generations are going to require. Now, if you know me, you know that I'm an optimist. I have absolute faith. I have faith that if we work together, engineers and planners and elected officials and the private sectors and the public agencies, we're going to make this happen. We're going to meet these challenges, and we're going to create the blueprint for a strong, really economically vital metropolitan region. But most importantly, we want it to remain economically competitive with the rest of the world, but we want to make it so it's sustainable, and we want to be able to do it so it lasts for decades. So let's jump back to letting me close out here real quickly. I told you I'd come back to talk about funding. And a few minutes ago, I said that funding is not the only answer to the question of how we're going to address the transportation needs. I also said I would deny that if you ever asked me. But funding is probably one of the key pieces to the puzzle. So I'm going to leave you all with something that I leave every audience I talk to. It's a call to action. Our region has to talk in a strong, unified voice. We have to talk about this issue. We've got to reach out to our congressional delegations. We have got to urge them to support transportation. We've got to urge them to do it long term. We've got to urge them to be bipartisan more than ever before, and we've got to urge them to do it quickly. MAP 21 expires in essentially about a year, in a congressional midterm election season. And what we do not need, since the last long-term funding bill began in 2004, and MAP 21 ends in 2014, we do not need to go more than that decade without a serious conversation about where our transportation network should be, what we want it to look like, and how we're going to fund it long term. We can't go more than 10 years without that conversation. But it isn't just members of Congress. They're elected officials like I am. They're not the only ones we've got to educate about how absolutely vital transportation is. We've got to talk to our friends. Believe me, I don't have many left anymore because it's all I talk about, all right? We've got to talk to our families. They're tired of hearing it from me, but I continue to do it. We've got to talk to our colleagues. We've got to talk to them in every single industry we possibly can, because the costs of congestion and the benefits of investment in this are far too important. And you and I have the opportunity to do this every single day with everyone we talk to. We've got to socialize transportation. Go back to those numbers. We've got to tie those numbers. That $1,281, if you talk to almost anybody in person, they're going to get that. 60 hours a year spent fighting congestion for every traveler in our region. As I mentioned, a bill for almost $1,300 per person that buys nothing but frustration. You are not going to take that money out of your wallet and pay for frustration, but you do it. A 36 to 1 return for every dollar just to find the way to make those needed investments. If we educate and we inform enough people, it is how we're going to make transportation a social issue. That is how we're going to humanize transportation. It's how we're going to create more and more vocal advocates for funding and investment, and it is something that can catch the ear of lawmakers on Capitol Hill in time for our transportation authorization next year. Some people think this is impossible, that something like this can't happen in Washington today. I'm not so sure. I will tell you that every single audience I go in front of, every single person I talk to, when I socialize this quickly in my 30-second elevator speech, they get it. They begin to understand. They make the connection. They see why this is so important. They see why I'm passionate about it. And as I've said before, I'm an optimist. There is a recent sign of hope. June 27th, the Senate confirmed our new Transportation Secretary, Anthony Foxx. The vote was what? 100-0. It tells me that there is hope for transportation in the future. On behalf of the NJTPA, our entire board, we have an amazing staff. Dave Barrand is here, the Director of Communications. I know I've got Tommy in the back videotaping because they never let me speak anywhere that they don't document what I have committed them to. Mary Kay Murphy's coming up, our Executive Director. She's a dynamic person, she's got more answers than I'll ever have. I've got a phenomenal staff there, but on behalf of all of us, thank you. It's a great opportunity to be here this morning. Please enjoy the rest of your conference. Okay?